Meeting reconvened, 12:51. Kate, thank you for your indulgence of council there for that 21-minute adjournment. And I note your new end date time will be 2 p.m, 1400 hours. I sincerely hope that we've been able to give all of this due consideration and have adopted the recommendations or a variant thereof well before then. So if I can continue, please. We are now, well, we've addressed 7A and B concurrently by moving in a different direction, which will be to revert the mapping that is indicated in the draft planning, in the proposed planning scheme, back to that that's in the current planning scheme for that area, which is to rezone it as rural. So we can now move to S8, please.
Submission 8, similar to what we've already seen before, in submission 5, objects to flood hazard mapping area for Aramac, and is concerned about consequences associated with that mapping.
Councillors in favour of standing with no change proposed?
Yep.
5-2, is that right? Thank you. Councillors Gleeson and Peoples dissenting. S9.
Submission 9 was purported to be an objection to a change of zoning. In the current planning scheme, it's mixed use zone. In the new planning scheme, it was proposed to be changed to township zone. However, the submission was not properly made in that it provided no grounds to justify the objection provided. We contacted that submitter and discussed the background to their objection, the fact that it was not properly made, and the circumstances of their lot, and gave them an opportunity before the submission period closed to reconsider and decide whether they wanted to make a new submission that was properly made. They chose to take no further action, so that no changes proposed on the basis that it was not properly made submission and there were no grounds for us to consider to justify the change. The development rights that go with mixed use are commensurate zoning effectively between the two scheme structures anyway.
Recommendation is no change proposed. Those agree?
Yep.
Thank you. S10.
S10 related to flood hazard mapping at Jericho, so I haven't got that column, but it is in the next column over. It was raising concerns with flood hazard mapping for Jericho, and their concerns that didn't the levy provide protection, and they referenced personal experience in terms of costs and in terms of insurance rates changes on another property they had at Gympie, where council went through a similar process of having to adopt flood hazard mapping there. The response there is similar to others in that we've adopted the best available 1% annual exceedance probability. That doesn't come from a QRA level 2 report. You might recall reports weren't prepared for Jericho and Alpha because there are existing Conor Wagner and Scott McMurphy reports for those two townships, which were prepared after the 1990 flood event, and we relied on them as the best available in those circumstances. The levy provides effective protection to Jericho up to approximately 2% annual exceedance probability event, so a 1 in 50 year event. Once you get beyond that, once we're getting towards the 1% annual exceedance probability event, it's expected that the flooding will be experienced within the township of Jericho, and that's quite widespread. The mapping reflects that.
Yeah, I'll speak to this one as an individual councillor. Strongly support the flood mapping for Jericho. It is a significant at-risk community with demonstrated evidence of flooding that vastly exceeds the mitigation measures that councils previously sought to put in place. That community, along with Alpha, is at risk of severe impact from flooding, and all future development, in my personal opinion as a councillor, is that the necessary measures that are in the planning scheme to address the impact on future development need to be addressed in the interest of both public safety and impact on public works. So I would strongly support the recommendation here that no change be effected to the mapping with respect to flood and or the conditions attached therein for the community of Jericho. Sorry? All good? I agree. Anyone disagree? No change proposed is supported.
Submission 11, effectively the same. Objected to the flood hazard mapping of Jericho. There's a specific concern they raised in their grounds was associated with the potential need to have somebody suitably qualified prepare a flood hazard management plan in the event of future development. As I explained before, that's not always going to be required. It will depend on the extent of the risk. For Jericho though, it probably would be a reasonable requirement given, I guess, what we understand to be the flood risk. That is someone proposing significant development, that a site-specific and development-specific flood hazard management plan support that application if it's in that area.
At the risk of repeating myself, Kate, I stand by the same submission I just made, but I'll also add that should there be significant economic development opportunities in and around Jericho or even small one-off development applications, they always have the ability to work with council for what would be deemed to be an acceptable submission, and that should they be building 600 millimetres above the known recommended flood height for this area, they would receive the tick that we referred to earlier, notwithstanding that was in an area that we disagreed with the mapping. However, in this case, there is no disagreement either through anecdotal evidence or council's own intimate understanding of the flood level. So there is methodology for them to comply with the Natural Hazard Code without needing to do this. They would only need to undertake such assessment if they wish to do something that did not apply. So I very strongly support the recommendation that no change be accepted. Carried. Thank you. S11, S12.
S12, this was lodged and framed as a submission, however, it expressly stated that it had no objections to the proposed planning scheme. They were actually seeking the property owners with land down near the creek at Alpha and were basically raising with council the proposition for council to buy back their land. That was a matter that was addressed in the public planning forum as well in Alpha. The mayor spoke to that in that forum. So in terms of the submission to change the planning scheme, they have no objections to proposing no change. It probably warrants some sort of operational response back to them to let them know some more information to what was provided to people at the planning forum.
No objection?
No objection. Question, through you, Mr. Mayor. Is that a reasonable future option? Because I had a similar thought about Aramat. Like, if someone comes to us with a development application and their lot is fully in that flood mapping and council has available land outside the flood mapping, and it may be on a case-by-case situation, but would like a property swap be, I guess it's a question for future council, but would we consider that possible? As long as it came in conjunction, not just a land swap for land swap, so that they end up with, but if someone was interested in building a house or a development.
I would think all of the options, even the one that you just said, not that, I would think all options would be available to council to facilitate the seamless transfer of ownership within a community so as to not lose stakeholders. I think it would probably be something that council could view quite favourably should an existing investor wish to safeguard by building elsewhere. You'd have to ensure that doing so was A, in the best interest financially of council, but also B, that we didn't have a situation of the haves and the have-nots within a community if there was not enough available land to undertake an exchange or buyback, so that not everybody could participate. Then that could fail a fairness test. But I would think all options. A future council would retain all options in that respect. And in fact, this planning scheme directly references that, Kate, in the strategic mapping for Alpha in particular, with the investigation areas that are lodged to the west of Alpha. So there's in fact strategic intent already signalled for the facilitation of new investment or relocation of existing dwellings. Thanks, Kate. We have approval for S12's recommendation. S13.
S13 was a request from a specific property owner to change the zoning of their lot from rural. It's currently rural, it's proposed to remain rural. They're submitting that change to rural residential to facilitate that style of development on their lot. There's a potential, they have a vested interest, there's a potential benefit to them associated with the requested change. On the face, it's to the east of Barcaldine. On the face of it, however, it's not an unreasonable proposition because of its proximity to Barcaldine. It does have some infrastructure that's nearby. It does, however, it would still need to be assessed on its merits or considered on its merits. I'm proposing no change to the planning scheme here in response to that submission on the basis that in the process of this making this planning scheme, no specific needs analysis has been undertaken or demand analysis has been undertaken in relation to additional rural residential land supply. And as a result, therefore, there's been no options analysis across the region of the potential lots which would be suited to provide an increase in that supply. And so to take a policy position to accept this person's submission without having regard to other potential lots which may have similar properties and similarly be able to be meritorious in meeting that rural residential supply. I'm proposing no change. However, I think there are benefits for this particular person under the new planning scheme in terms of the development application process and requirements that would actually apply if they were to go down the development approval path, if they were so motivated to do so. If council is to make the change to the planning scheme, it's council who has the onus of demonstrating that it's appropriate, it's an appropriate policy position, that there is existing demand that needs to be met, and that the location of this lot is the correct location or the appropriate location to respond to that demand over the 10-year planning horizon. By leaving this person's property as rural zoned, but encouraging them to go down the development application pathway to have the merits of their proposal assessed, it actually just puts that onus to some extent back on the applicant, and it puts some of the risk associated back on the applicant, that they need to be satisfied that there's a demand for this style of development and that they can go ahead and justify that through the development application process. To provide some context around the location of this lot, because we're not able to identify them through the consultation report, I believe we do have access to some context mapping there that relates to the submission.
All makes sense
I
now.
was just trying to,
Light bulbs just went off, 7 of them, didn't they? Or 6, because mine went off last week.
My switch is still down.
Councillors, if I could add to this, I also believe that the submitter here has got significant opportunity afforded via our statement of strategic intent, which is section 3, the strategic outcomes, which is the broader picture piece of the planning scheme that doesn't directly apply to planning outcomes in a 10-year period, but does over the life of the planning document. I'm specifically referring to within the planning scheme as was presented to the public under section 3.2.2, conditions or reference point 16, sorry, Councillor, to be clear. I'm specifically referring to non-rural uses may be appropriate in rural and other areas where they do not result in conflicts with existing or likely future rural activities. do not diminish the amenity of established residential uses, can demonstrate a direct relationship, I am paraphrasing here, need to be located outside town areas due to potential impacts or specific use requirements, which I believe rural res is different to residential. But then specifically section 17, so if you want to read this, it's in the planning scheme on page 26. 17, to support regional population growth in all towns, living options across the region will be diversified by allowing rural lifestyle lots or new rural residential development in rural and other areas where, and then a number of different conditions, A, land is proximate to a town area, a la the one in question, appropriate access to services and facilities is provided, including reticulated water supply where possible. Future proponents would need to demonstrate that, but the obvious proximity to the Barcaldine Renewable Energy Zone is obvious. Land use conflicts with existing or likely rural uses are avoided by incorporating buffers and separation distances in the siting and design of the development. Proximity to town would be obviously not only that block, but a number of other freehold opportunities to the north, south and southeast of town. There is no increased risk to persons or properties. The provision of the new development supports housing choice for the community. So I think Council strategically, in its strategic outcomes, has clearly articulated that exact style of development could see support provided those broad conditions were met, which would form part of the material change of use application from a proponent. This was also addressed by the planning consultants during the Barcaldine consultation, where a verbal question was asked of Council with respect to its support for future rural lifestyle opportunities, and so that strategic document was referred to, as were two other clear sections. So whilst the recommendation here is for no change, and I fully support that, it's not that Council does not support through this document the establishment of rural residential. In fact, it clearly does. What we're not doing is picking and choosing winners and losers, because this proponent may not be the only one seeking to establish that down the track, whereas if we designate their block at their request to do that now, they clearly get a kickstart that other proponents, potential proponents, would not get. So everybody currently would have the opportunity, everybody would have the opportunity under the planning scheme as it is presented currently. If we amended the mapping to reflect that area, in my opinion, we'd be picking a winner and substantially being disadvantageous to others who might not necessarily have the same advantage. So I think we can rest easy in the knowledge that rural res lifestyle is supported, provided there's the benchmarks identified in 3.2.2 item 17 referenced, and Council can then clearly check that things like visual amenity, proximity, reticulated water can all be. So that's my submission personally on this. I'll open for further comments. Councillor Blazen.
I agree with you. Mr. Mayor, because it's so these persons, any person within the vicinity of the town can reapply individually at a later date.
And that's true for any town, not just a community.
Any town, yeah.
Yes. If they want to subdivide a portion of land off, if it exceeds 1,000 acres, it's actually code accessible if it comes out of a rural area. The subdivision, though, was for smaller parcels of land. It would trigger impact assessment. Kate, that's consistent with the advice you gave me last week? Yep.
That's correct. And that's what gives, I guess, the head of power to be able to refer to the strategic framework, whereas in code assessment, you get down by a specific code.
All good?
I'm fine. Mr. Mayor, I just don't know if we'd be picking a winner, because this person, all other people had the opportunity to do this too. You know what I mean?
Correct, which is why if we went back to the public, if we were to accept this change, we would have to go back to the public to give everyone else the same opportunity. We should hold the process up.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, S13 has the recommendation for no change has been adopted unanimously. S14.
Submission 14, I'll just flag the date of this one. This was a late submission, which we have accepted, and that's consistent with the representations that council made to the state with respect to the additional public holiday that fell within the public consultation period for the Queen's Memorial event, and also the commitment we made to the community when we were doing the community planning forums that we were just happy to hear from people, and we would, where possible, consider any submissions received. So this was received late, but proposed that it be accepted as properly made and considered duly. It raised concerns with the flood mapping at Alpha. I guess the response to the submission is recommended to be no change proposed for the reasons given previously in terms of flood hazard mapping.
Councillors? Those in favour of supporting the no change proposed recommendation? 7-0. Okay, you have support for S14 to remain as your recommendation. So to summarise that discussion, we have adopted all recommendations other than those referenced to S7A and B, where we are proposing a reversion of zoning to what is currently the case under the Barcaldine Shire Council planning scheme. There was, for the benefit of the record, there was opposition to S5's recommendation, which still was supported 5-2. There was opposition to S7A and B, which was therefore supported 6-1, and
8.
S8, I'm sorry I didn't write that note, it was
5-2.
5-2 as well. Yep. Okay. Right, Kate, do you want to revise, do we speak now to the revision drafting register?
Yeah, so just in terms of the resolution, attachments A, B and attachment C, in my 5 recommendations will just need to be subject to that change with respect to 7A and B. The attachment G, the revision drafting register, this is just to give you an overview before you endorse the revised version of the proposed planning scheme, to give you an overview of the changes that have been made and the reason for the changes. Since it was last endorsed by Council, which was version 004C, so that's the version that Council last endorsed and submitted to the Department for State Interest Review. In response to the State Interest Review, the State actually requested some minor amendments and some other typos were noted in between time. So they were actually made before we went to public consultation, but that was consistent with the conditions of the Chief Executive's letter approving that you proceed to consultation. As you said, they're all corrections, minor administrative matters, or updating some information to reflect changes that have occurred in the State Department structures and things like that. Table B, then, drafting revisions which have been made between the versions that went to the public consultation, and the version which is before you now and referred to as attachment B to your agenda. So you've got 15 amendments which have been made. You will need to make an additional one, which will be the changing back of the zone in relation to submissions 7A and 7B. Most of them we've already addressed. They're either minor typographical matters or those changes to the strategic objectives maps and the airport overlay map. So I guess I'm just flagging that's where the changes have occurred. There have been 2 zone changes to council-owned land. They are zone changes which have occurred because there's been subsequent, between when the mapping was originally prepared and the mapping now, there have been subdivisions or reconfigurations of land that has been owned by council. These are near the cemetery at Maryborough, the large common area where the Freedom parking is, and also another area which I believe the reconfiguration came about as a result of negotiations which didn't end up proceeding with a local rifle, target shooting club, the rifle club, in Barcaldine, to the south of Barcaldine there. The reconfigurations which have occurred since were going to mean that the two previous portions, or the previous portions have different zoning, seeing as they've been amalgamated or reconfigured, you are going to actually have split zoning across what is now a single parcel of land. So those changes to zones are not considered to be significantly different. They're actually just changes to open space and recreation from rural, which reflect council's ownership and council's intent, and provide us a single zone across those parcels for ease of future planning process.
And would be more consistent with what is actually occurring on that land anyway.
Yes, correct.
All right. Councillors, we have to revise the resolution slightly in that it needs to incorporate the aforementioned change to, as a result of the report on SA7 and S7A and S7B. So I would suggest that it be under point 1, provides a summary of consultation activities compliance. Put a column there, please. With the exception of
Change it to submission 7A, 7B.
a change to Appendix B, reference S7A and S7B. Where the response action was listed as no change proposed. And this instead will now. Kate, am I changing this in the right area? It could be a separate point, couldn't it?
You could put it above all of those 5. So you could put subject to the recommendation of no change in relation to S7A and S7B being changed to retain the rural zoning of the lots, the subject of those
Okay.
submissions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think subject to could sit above all 5.
So can we copy that? Just copy it, please. I want to leave some of it there. Copy from all of it, actually, yes. We'll look in a bit. Place that above where Kate's suggesting. And then instead, yeah, delete that. That can come out. With the exception of. Oh no, sorry, leave it in there for now. Go back up to the top and delete that with the exception of, yes. Point 1 now. Council endorses, approves, I'm sorry, a change to consultation report Appendix B, reference S7A and S7B recommendation, where the response action was listed as no change proposed, and that this instead, so put that if you can please, yep, will now retain the rural zoning as per its current, those land parcel, plural, current zoning under the Barcaldine Shire Council planning scheme. and we still a bit of wordsmith, just might not read quite right. Council approves the change
Appendix
to
reference and you can't.
the consultation report, Appendix B, reference S7A and S7B. Yeah, you can delete recommendation, please. That doesn't read right. Pull it out,
Delivery document 7B.
Yep.
Response action.
comma, where the response action was listed as no change proposed, and that this instead will now retain the rural zoning as per land parcels, as per,
Current zoning.
Currently,
you could probably take out land parcels.
It refers to those
Yep.
classes in 7A.
Through you, Mr Mayor, after Appendix B, you want to put submission reference? I know it's the same,
Yep.
Just after B, the submission.
so yeah, top line, Appendix B,
Between B and reference.
yeah, sorry, there's too many Bs in the first
Put
line.
s-
Yes, so
yep.
one more changing reference.
just adding
Before
submission.
reference, put submission.
Appendix B submission.
Submission reference.
Yes.
That's the title of the column. We'll capitalise the C and the R in consultation report afterwards or down. Okay, so councillors, clear what we're doing here, what this resolution calls for. Now, if we can go down into that one, while you're reading that, and then we can just read, and changes be made to the public consultation in response to submissions, with the exception of a change, with the exception of the change approved in item 1 above. Would that be right, Kate?
Approved change, wouldn't it
Right for that one.
Yes.
Or you think, can you see our screen?
No, I can't.
Oh, sorry. So, sorry, what we've done is, sorry, you've done well there.
It's not a scale. I was trying to think, so it's not a scale I can see.
Sorry, endorse the consultation report attachment A, which provides a summary of the consultation activities undertaken, compliance with consultation requirements, matters raised in submissions received, and changes to be made to the publicly consulted version of the proposed planning scheme in response to submissions, with the exception of the change approved in item 1 above.
And then for recommended resolution 2 and 3, that change also needs to be reflected with respect to the revised version of the proposed Buckfield planning scheme, including mapping. So we need to fix the mapping up. And with respect to the reasons provided in a significantly different statement, because we will just need to address specifically that change in how it's not significantly different, because it's it's retaining an existing zoning in response to a submission.
So it's now item 3 on our maps, not 2, on our agenda, sorry. So it's now endorse the revised version of the proposed Buckhorn Regional Planning Scheme, including mapping, attachment B, with regard to the change in item 1 above.
Yeah, or subject to the change.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Subject to the change? Yeah. Take out with regard, replace with subject, please. Okay, then we move to item 4, determine for the purposes of stage 4 of the prescribed process as set out in the 14 February 20 notice issued to Council under section 18.3 of the Planning Act, in accordance with Schedule 2 of the Minister's Guidelines and Rules, that the proposed Buckhorn Regional Planning Scheme is not significantly different from the publicly consulted version for the reasons in the significantly different statement attachment C.
Same.
So that's where we'd go, that notwithstanding the change in item 1, as it is, those parcels of land are not undertaking a zone change from the existing to the proposed planning scheme.
Those parcels of land.
Are not undergoing a change in zoning from the existing planning scheme to the new,
And
to the proposed, sorry, to the proposed
we
plan.
should add there, that the change has been made in response to a submission received by the owner of the land.
Okay, so notwithstanding the changes in one, no, will be more than following, as well as the change being, as well as the change having been approved following a submission from the owners of the land. So we've added to the bottom of your recommendation, notwithstanding the changes in item 1, as those parcels of land are not undergoing a change in zoning from the existing planning scheme to the proposed, as well as the change having been approved following a submission from the owners of the land. Actually, should we should we substitute the word change as well as the reversion? Because we are reverting, because we're not changing, that's the point.
We're retaining.
Yeah, the retention, retention, not reversion. Would that be right, Kate?
Yes.
As well as the retention having been approved following a submission, yep. Item 5.
That's right, I was just wanting to make sure we didn't lose that.
I'm pretty keen for you to not lose that too, Debbie. We don't need to change the authorisation for the CEO to respond because they will still do that anyway. The CEO will still do that. Give notice to the planning minister in accordance with step 14 of the prescribed process set out in the 14 February 20 notice. Yeah, so we don't need to amend the last item either, is that correct? Item 6.5, it would be on your sheet.
We don't change authorisation of the CEO, Kate, do we, or the planning minister's one?
No, we don't change, I don't think we need to change that. The only change you could potentially make is, at what's now your 6, approval to adopt the proposed planning scheme. You can put endorsed in 3 above or endorsed in 3.
Is it
Approved in
3?
Endorsed, not in 3.
As,
No, it'll be the next one down, I reckon.
It's endorsed, the revised version.
Yeah, endorsed in 3 above, yes.
yeah,
Correct. All right, councillors. I will now move to formal debate. Do I have a mover for the resolutions as they are comprehensively presented in front of me? Councillor Plum moves. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hanson. Councillors, do you have questions for officers or statements or a wish to speak for or against the resolution?
Mr Mayor, I'll speak against.
Yes, councillor.
I just don't agree, as we've all discussed, with the mapping, so I've got problems with that still being in our plan. But for the sake of having a plan, I'll probably vote for this to go through, but I have got problems with it.
Thank you. Councillors, further comment?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson.
I have voted against 2 items out of lots. I am allowed to vote for this, are you?
Yes, councillor, we intentionally did not, as a room, enter into formal debate by receiving this report under resolution.
Thank you.
So we discussed in open meeting this council's response to each of the consultant's recommendations. The purpose of the vote was purely for you to allow on camera on record your individual considerations for each submitter's requests to be considered. You have now got the luxury of taking into consideration the whole of the plan and the whole of the context of this. So your objections to elements of the planning scheme have been clearly noted for the record in the transcript of our meeting. However, you can now weigh up whether you believe that the elements of the consultant's report that you were against are outweighed by the positives in the plan, or whether you believe they are to be sufficient roadblocks for you to receiving your support for the plan as it is. So the same would apply to other two councillors who have raised an objection. You retain the right to vote for or against this. You're in no way bound by your earlier indication of support or lack thereof. I felt it important that those considerations be made in public rather than deliberated on in private. For two reasons. One, legislatively, we are required to demonstrate active consideration, as the record will now reflect. And secondly, the public deserves to have the transparency of individual councillors' thoughts, just like you as a councillor deserve to have that publicly known. I preambled enough about the importance of this at the end. I won't close. Is there any further comments in closing?
Just a general statement. It's unfortunate and fortunate that historically all our towns are built very close to a watercourse. It's even more unfortunate that, and I guess to a certain extent, understandably, previous councils haven't been able to effect change where it's stopped people buying land and putting assets in areas that are at high risk. And councils across Australia and the world do planning poorly, and it creates untold misery for those that pour their life savings into a house and then see it destroyed or damaged by flooding. It's just unfortunate that we weren't progressed to this 30 years ago. And it will be an unpalatable decision for a lot of people in some of our towns. It's just unfortunate that harder decisions like this weren't made a long time ago.
I think my comments now are not about the importance of this, but to directly address that and other elements of the planning scheme is that, notwithstanding the flooding impact, there are a lot of provisions in this planning scheme that will make future development so much more sustainable and better for our region, be it the rural setting or our urban setting or the fringes attached to that. This modernises our planning scheme. It harmonises, something that I talked about in consultation. You could own a house in 3 of the 5 towns and have 3 different planning schemes attached, 3 different sets of rules, 3 different compliance requirements, and that's not fair. That's not right, it's not balanced. So I think that I'm firmly of the belief that whilst there certainly will be areas of this planning scheme that will be questioned and may require significant amendment, including the mapping, if that's something that council sees futuristically the need to undertake, that the good in this plan far outweighs any perception of negativity, and the recognition of us as one community or one council area through this planning scheme is something that shouldn't be oversold, because we do have a number of people who own houses and properties right across the council area, and we're treating them all differently. Further comments, Councillor Gleeson?
Mr Mayor, just one other question to Kate. I'm pretty positive I know the answer, but I just want to put for a record. On page 147 of the mapping, the stabled area, the preferred stabled area of all our 4 towns, does that mean, it doesn't mean that the existing stable areas, the local laws officer can go and move any persons from our existing areas, does it?
If the existing use is lawful under the planning framework and under the local law, it should remain lawful. This is an indication for people wishing to do that kind of thing in the future, where it may be most appropriate to do it, and it sets out, I guess, it makes that known to others who may move onto properties or wish to do things on properties around those designated precincts. that is the 10-year intent or the planning intent for that area. So it shouldn't change anything that is lawfully occurring at the moment. This was to provide some direction and guidance of where those uses might be more appropriately located in the future.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's another grey area, but thank you, Mr Mayor.
Do you want to question that just a slight bit more, just to clear it up? Whether you agree or not won't matter, at least it'll be clear in your mind, that's all I'm thinking.
So if it's existing stable, it can stay, can do that.
That's what I'm asking,
Yeah, so it doesn't change, if it's there, it's still there,
As long as it's legal.
as long as it's illegal,
Sorry.
as long as it's legal.
But what if there's, Mr Mayor, through you, there's not too much area now for stables, and Tom spoke to me about this.
Councillor Gleeson?
Sorry, Councillor Gleeson. So no one else can put any new stables away from just those areas that we've got.
You still can, you still
Still
put
can.
an application in and gets approved on merit, but if it's within the areas we've identified, it's a lot simpler.
Go straight
Yeah,
through.
does that answer your question, Councillor Gleeson?
I'm right. Thank you, Kate. I just wanted to clear that up because, yeah, from outside looking in, it looks as though, to me, immediately, when I first looked at it, I thought that everybody was going to have to move, but no, it is the preferred in the future.
Within the development framework, animal keeping is actually in use. So you can be required to, it's a material change of use to start animal keeping on land. The purpose of the stables precincts and the planning scheme is to identify an area where you can actually do animal keeping as accepted development, where if you want to do new animal keeping, you can do it there, subject to certain provisions without the need for a development application.
Thank you.
Are there any other little grey areas, councillor, because, or councillors, no more important strategic document will be handed down in your time as a councillor than this one. So you're better off getting your questions off your chest. As I stated, whether you agree with the answer or not is not material. It's so your understanding of what you're voting on here in a minute is clear. I'll go once around the room just for the purpose of clarity. Councillor Rogers, any further questions? Councillor Plum? Councillor Arthur?
I'm as clear as I think my capacity allows me to be, Mr Mayor.
Good answer.
But yes,
Very
I'm like-
astute answer. I like that. Councillor Hicks, it's hard act to follow that one, isn't it? Anyway, the floor is now yours.
I will agree with Councillor.
Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Mr Mayor, I'm still struggling with the mapping, I'm really struggling, so I think it's so wrong. You just said, you know, this is the most important document, and I think it really is. You know, affecting the property rights of a lot of people. Because the mapping's wrong, I've got problems with that. And I know it's all right to say, well, this is what we've got to have, and this is what was done by QRA and their engineers, but it doesn't make it right. But I'm on my own there, I think.
I wouldn't suggest you're on your own with the thoughts about the maps, but
Far from it.
you're not. It's just my personal opinion. I'm not going to speak for one other councillor on this. Is that the ability for us to influence outside of that, which is a pre-approved style of mapping, is negligible or zero. We have to conform with tier 1, 2 or 3. This mapping is available now. The planning scheme, in my opinion, is long overdue for adoption. We can separately, under separate cover, weigh up the merit of amending that mapping through our own studies, or perhaps asking for the QRA to review it. And the fact that we left the previous decision around flood height, setting it for the purposes of building, lay on the table, substantially improves our ability to not move in that direction until we're comfortable with the mapping, so as to allow the planning scheme's generalities to allow some flexibility, whereas if we were to set the prescriptive building heights that were set in the previous resolution we discussed a few months ago, it would be much more prescriptive on our communities where we have no confidence in the mapping. As this debate today has worn on, I'm firmly of the opinion that we could not proceed in good conscience with the building heights, the AHD building heights that are recommended for Aramac, and if council was to see fit to move with that report, we'd have to only move with the areas that we were confident in the mapping for. This is a different set of rules. This should definitely be viewed in isolation. So that way there's much more flexibility for new development in the parameters of the planning scheme than would be the case if we had already adopted that resolution to set a fixed height for each of our communities based on that mapping. So from that perspective, I've got much more comfort in this acting alone than I would have if the two were acting hand in glove. All right. Calling once more. There's no comment. I now call the vote. Those in favour of the resolutions 1 through 6 as presented, please raise your hand. Those opposed? 6-1. Councillor Peoples dissenting. Kate, on behalf of council, thank you for your efforts and diligence and advice and professionalism through this process. We still have some way to go, but we've clearly reached a level that many months ago felt like it was still a long way away. So thank you very much, and thank you once again for your time and your indulgence in the adjournment this afternoon.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors.
Thanks,
Thank
Kate.
you.
Mr. Mayor, just on an open meeting,
We are in open meeting, yes.
can I ask how much this whole operation costs Buckle Region?
Without dark set on notes.
Yeah. I can't give you the answer right now.
Thank you.
We budgeted for it many moons ago, but I can't recall what the answer is.
Even Kate froze when you asked that question.
A lot. A lot.
It's been
That's why
going
you
for
don't-
50 years, 5 years.
Yeah, that's why you don't do it every year.
Well, it's never been done in our time, 6 years.
Hasn't been done since before amalgamation.
I think even some of the existing ones, I would say, would have had very little done to them.
From the ones before that. All right. Right, presentation.
Oh, no, I'm just going to say we'll go sit over at mine first so we're done.
No, we're finished the planning step.
All right,
Just
for a minute.
do you want me to grab Aaron
No,
to
no.
make sure it's all right, Deb? Is it
Um,
Aaron or it's all good?
Councillors,
Are you
We wouldn't
closing
use
or?
Gardner until I'm
yeah, councillors will adjourn please now for the purposes of this presentation. Thank you.
We just take a couple of minutes just to
Set up, well,
set
do
up.
some introductions as well.
Yeah, sure. This is Matt Carson. Matt.
Meeting reconvened 2:18 PM. We now go to agenda item, no we're not. Yes we are, we're going to do 336, because we're close to it in our agendas, tree management policy. As the officer presenting has returned. And I'm going to hand the chair to the Deputy Mayor, make myself a coffee.
I think Councillor Arthur, you had some questions.
Councillor People started at the palm trees.
Oh, my apologies, Councillor Peoples.
No, that's fine, I just,
You want to start?
yeah, I just want to ask a question that it's on the prohibited tree list, they are palm trees, and we seem to have a fair few in our parks, even mostly our council parks. Is there a reason why we can't have those trees?
You, Deputy in there. I don't know who added palms to that list.
So we can probably take it off.
I was going to ask a question just about, how this was chosen, but also there are quite a few of these that we've got established all across the region. The eucalyptus, the figs, palms, African mahogany. So I was going to ask, whether does that mean that those trees that we've already got will sort of, they won't be removed, won't affect those?
Well,
They will,
through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, Peltophrum is in the suitable tree list. And then in the prohibited tree list, they're an acacia anyway, aren't they?
No,
What are they?
they are a separate. Depends how far you go back, genus or species.
Yeah, right.
Peltophrum petrocarpum, which is like a yellow flame tree.
Yep.
And locally, like the flea tree is sometimes referred to as an acacia, but it's not an acacia. Like the acacias, for my mind of thought, is like your prickly acacia.
Yeah, prickly, yeah.
Bloody wild is acacia.
So what's the Peltophrum forming to? I might have it mixed up.
Because your Peltophrum and your
Other, I think, yeah.
Poincianas.
No, it's Poinciana, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
You got the Jacaranda, it's similar. That's the one I think is similar.
Yeah, no, that's right. I'm stand corrected there.
Yeah, probably depends how far you want to go back with your species and genus. But that prohibited tree list is, well, from my understanding, only for on the footpath. I think there's still issues with it because it doesn't necessarily align with. I think the biggest problem with the stuff on the footpath is if it's under a power line or not. And Ergon do have some stuff. I was wrong, Madam Deputy Mayor, they do have a prohibited tree list. So whether we reference those trees that are on the Ergon Energy list, because you can go in there by council area and see what's preferred and what's not, and then possibly have like additional local prohibited trees. What's going on there?
But go back to the district management agenda, so we adopted the tree management policy back in February, but we never had the tree list to start with. So we obviously grabbed the list from somewhere.
Deputy Mayor to Theo, yes. And I was going to confirm my belief of this prohibited list was for footpaths, because we look at the trees that we're saying are prohibited tree list. They're the ones with terrible root systems that you see damage footpath, make trip hazards and hazards. So my understanding, this list was totally in relation to footpaths, not in your parks and everything like that. It's where they can cause hazards to the general public, as in footpaths, is how I view that list. And then the ones that were saying that would be acceptable on footpaths and acceptable on power lines.
Well, okay, we might have to change the wording because the second lot there is suitable tree list, not under power lines, council footpaths, and the bottom one is suitable under power lines, and the top one is just saying prohibited.
Should we amend that footpaths at the end of it?
Yeah, through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, 0.2.3 footpaths is the only bit where I can find where it says trees must not be on the council's prohibited tree list. and I would say it's a bit like the planting scheme, if we've already got palm trees, unless there's criteria there for their removal, so if they're structurally damaged, spoil the amenity, what else was there? Determined disease, present public safety, health, and an inappropriate specimen, that are grounds for council to look into removing. So if they're jacking up the gutter, footpaths, interfering with sewage and plumbing, like your fig trees. Well, I think there is still some clarification around those prohibited tree lists, because even like palms, like you can have a palm that's 4 foot high, or these ones here, whatever species they are, that are 15 metres high. And even like your melaleucas, you can get melaleucas that are prostrate or only shrubs. But then I guess whether that's because it says prohibited tree list, as long as you can prove that they're a prostrate or a shrub, then I guess they're not technically prohibited.
The melaleuca paperback, melaleuca lipidema, which is the same ones that are on the India. So you don't want them. You want them.
But yeah, I would probably add that flea tree to that. And probably the peperina.
So are palms prohibited?
On a footpath.
No, but it's not footpath, that top one.
No, the previous in the policy, the only bit that refers to the prohibited trees is 2.3 on a footpath. So if you want to go and plant trees on the footpath, you, at this, like if we accept it as is, you can't put those on there. And then if it's under a power line, yeah, it has a different.
I did send it out for feedback, Madam Chair, and didn't get any. So did you want me to send it out again and I can update it if people provide their feedback?
Would anyone like to have Debbie?
I'll put my hand up to being at fault with that, because I didn't get around to giving feedback before the meeting.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Another question that I would like to ask is how close to a corner intersection can there be trees planted? It's just got here 1 tree for each 20 metres on street frontage. It doesn't say where the 20 metres starts. And I'm just questioning the ability of somebody planting trees close to a corner. So that'd be something that I would like to see as well.
To Deputy Mayor, I think there is a rule, and we only know when we were doing those tree planting for the Queens, I'm sure it has to be 20 metres from a corner.
So should we include that in this policy?
Deputy Mayor, I think clarify that in there.
Yeah, so those prohibited trees would be allowed to be planted in our park, but not on the footpath. Like if it was a palm or...
Well, I don't read it like that, but I might be wrong. Because I think in Aramac the fig tree's prohibited. Because of the damage it does to the sewage in parks.
There's a lot of big trees we've planted up towards the airport.
We ruled them out a long time ago because the damage they were doing to sewage lines.
I would agree, Councillor Peoples. I think they should be prohibited and progressively removed. If they're within council asset areas, like if.
Well, that's probably happened in Aramac. They haven't even come up yet. So through you, Madam Mayor, I still see them as prohibited, except the farms. That's how I read it.
So we maybe,
I put defers decision until updated following feedback. Would that be acceptable?
Anyone would like to move that we defer the decision until an updated of councillor Arthur, seconded by councillor Gleeson.
And I'll send it out again for feedback.
And I shall,
Thank you.
through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, ensure that I provide some appropriate feedback in a timely manner.
All those in favour of that decision, that's 6.
Would you like me to come back and we're finishing the
Did you
point?
vote?
What, if you, I will vote in favour.
Yes, so
If you'd like to continue the finance report, we're happy. Sorry. 344, can I have somebody please move it to receive the 2022 final management letter, please? Moved. Councillor Arthur. But we now discuss it after that. Second to Councillor Peters, those in favour. Gary, questions please?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, did we get one of these last year?
Should have done.
I think so, yeah. I think so, councillor Hart.
Yes, I believe so.
It might have just slipped in before the other.
I think you'll find that the Mayor actually had a fair bit of very strong commentary about the inclusion of certain items in said letter last year.
Okay. I should listen to the mayor more often then.
Quite irate about a couple of individual documentation issues that auditors requested. And I note with glee that some of those same things have been removed this year from the draft closing report. Also note the audit fee was actually in line with the estimation. There was no increase required.
I've got information, got time on that.
Does anyone want to question anything referenced in the appendices of that?
The answer things, Mr Mayor.
I just didn't quite hear that, sorry, Councillor.
Oh, the query I have has been answered, thank you.
Does either of our audit committee, audit risk committee members wish to provide any comment or happy to take it as read? Okay. The annual report. The Council adopts the Clark Walden Regional Council 2022 annual report, including the audit financial statements and the community financial report for the year ending 30 June. You will note, as was consistent with what I did last year, despite Sunmate's greatest attempts in the world to get it out of me beforehand, my mayoral report is vacant. I did include last year after the meeting to adopt that report so that I could cover any commentary that councillors may wish to provide or by way of debate will be included. So that is my report. It's not something that requires adoption anyway. We're effectively only adopting the financial statements from further on, not my report. My report's just like an intro to it. That I did reflect two councillors' personal contributions to the commentary around it. So should councillors wish to provide comment on the report now, is your chance, and I may choose to include it if I think it's well warranted. Councillor Peters.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. Some of us get mentioned in here about doing business with council at the back. Have we got any conflict there at all?
No.
Is it okay for us to say?
It's all reported.
I am.
It's all reported, yeah?
This is just simply reporting matter that's in public domain. We all get mentioned on page 9.
Yes. Yes. Council, this is good.
Okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to ask a question about page 9 actually.
Yep.
My expenses for the year. I just would like to know, or can I get information on where that figure comes from?
Certainly.
Because, yeah, like the previous 2 years was like 1,800 and 500, and then it just seems like, I'm just wondering whether maybe the motor vehicles, that's something,
Vehicles captured in that.
but I had a vehicle last year as well, so, like, last year was
We
500.
can give a breakdown.
Just in the first
This is
report,
the third year I've had a vehicle.
yeah.
Just,
Well,
it
that's
was
the first two.
500 and now it's 17,000, just, I don't understand.
Mine seems pretty high too, don't worry. I looked at that and it fell off my chair. But mine would have to do with an insurance claim, I'm sure. I'm sure that's why the district manager's laughing over there, so.
We're not charging you.
No, not, even if it wasn't an insurance claim, it'd only be an excess, which wouldn't be anywhere near that high. It's just, it did feel very high, but I have done a ridiculous amount of travel in the last 12 months, both in my own car and with the big tin bird.
Happy enough to break those expenses down for councillors.
Yeah, what did you say your first year's was? 500? But you didn't have a car for the first 3 months, did you? It has definitely.
1,800, because I went to a conference, then 500, and then this last time, 17,000
Your car wouldn't have been captured in the first one.
Can't have been captured because you would have done more than
in the
that.
first 2 years.
Must never have been getting picked up.
Car equivalent somewhere between 13 and 20. General cost of the vehicle.
How, yeah, what is the basis for the capture of that? The expenses incurred problems,
Expenses in your work you're doing as a councillor.
but things like our office and cars wouldn't always be captured through a general ledger report. You'd have to actually estimate that, wouldn't you?
Your vehicle expenses would be covered.
Expenses, but not the provision of. Is there an allowance made for the
There's no
provision
allowance
of?
made for the vehicle. It'd be a cost the council would have done.
3 Mr. Mayor. $17,610 out of that 17,772 is plant expense. That should be the cost.
Paid expense for
Right.
the car.
Car fuel, insurance, registration.
How much, sorry?
It's 17,610.
So all but $162 of it is actually all car.
We'll pull down the
So
expenses.
some of that, then probably we've missed out the expenses for last year's. Is it October?
Did you go to last year's conference? Did you miss a year in the middle?
Oh, yeah, mine.
No, you went to Mackay. That was only last year.
It was last year, yeah, so.
Mine's 1,800.
Although, yes, but see, don't forget the deputy, there's two
for free.
Two get done for free. We get our attendance at LGAQ for free. That's,
yeah.
yes, so you would have been
So
captured in
that's
that.
pretty much all
whereas-
half, just like that one, yeah.
And
We'll break down.
out of your 72.
Yeah, I'd like mine for the matter of
50 is
transparency.
plant,
50.
but I can give you a detailed breakdown of all these costs as well.
What else is there other than plant? Because I think there'll be people out there that'll be interested in this, so we may as well just pick their curiosity right now and tell them what I spent the money on.
Good idea, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think it's not take a free
it's not
swing at
all
it
mine
because
in
it's
the
pretty
building.
big. It's nearly as big as my allowance. And I don't probably actually pay for nearly a third of my own travel and accommodation anyway, so thank goodness it's not all in there or it'd be over 100,000.
System slow.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm happy to take the time.
We can come back later, we can keep football.
Just while we're looking for that, does anyone have any other questions? I just want to point out something we pointed out when we saw the financials first received, that the tremendous work that has been done, both from a budgetary strategic point of view by council and from the staff here, in that for only the second time, we've achieved an operating surplus. We're a financially sustainable council by every matrix of measurement. Now, you can say that's through good luck, good management, or a combination of both, but it's not all luck. It's not all luck. I think it's a tremendous position for the council to find itself in at almost the midway mark, and times it's felt a little ad hoc, but the planning and strategic focus we've had on fixing revenue without just being solely fixated on expenditure is a large share of that. This council's lifted its rates by a compounded increase over 10% over 2 years. Tough things for any council to do when inflation was half that or less. And that's just a small part of the story. We've been able to successfully lobby for and achieve and deliver substantive road construction projects, which has delivered an increase to the bottom line and obviously a decrease to our overheads or uncontrollable overheads. So this report reflects a set of financial statements that truly reflects where we are heading with our fiscal policy on both a broad and micro level.
There'll be accommodation, the conferences accommodation.
Okay.
For yourself, I suppose GAQ, other fees there. Some uniforms in that as well. The other conferences, big conferences and then travels, airfares, travel, accommodation, your vehicle.
Paid for the uniforms though, but anyway.
There's a small component there, uniforms, $142.
Yeah.
Can't sure what it would be. But anyway, it's all right.
So, yeah, mostly is, Mr. Mayor, related to yours is mostly travel and accommodation.
So there's about 22,000 on top of the 50,
So that's 19,000 on top of that.
19,000.
19,724.
So roughly 20,000 is travel and accommodations and conferences.
And the rest is all plant used, which is motor vehicle.
Yeah. Oh, about 1,000.
So there's a lot of mileage for a few.
So for the record, the councillor's own interest, my 72,000 is proportioned 50,000 for plan, 20,000 for travel and conference attendance, meeting and conference attendance, and obviously $2,000 of incidentals for office uniforms.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and a few other, there's some small amounts for
Hospitality.
GAQ events and yeah, all that hospitalities.
Small hospitality.
Oh. Any questions further about that? Questions or issues more broadly? Okay, there being none. Do I have a resolution to adopt the annual report, including the audited financial statements? Financial report for 30 June 22, held to the Peoples, Councillor Hanson seconds. Debate?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we might have to change the cover page because it's the same as the budget.
Change the photo, subject to the change.
I would be a happy man if you did that.
We had this same order for the budget.
Changing the cover page.
It
I
just
think
came on the last minute, so I think it's like,
something that reflects the Muttaburrasaurus's newfound status as the official fossil animal in Queensland might be good, although that did not actually occur until this year, so something else.
that was the picture for the budget, so we changed that.
Right. Does any council have a wish, what you'd like to see on the front? It's a bestseller, like we'll sell a lot of these in the reports.
I have a list of prohibited photos.
Yes.
When we have a look at the council pictures, it's all look really good.
The time being 2:44, we move on from that. Sorry.
Very young men's.
My hair colour's fast catching yours, Councillor Plum, through noting out some of the comments that you've.
I've noticed it today, it is red.
Vote please, Mr Mayor.
Sorry?
Vote,
Got to
please.
vote for it.
I'm waiting, yes, we all good? Those in favour? 7-0.
Thank you.
346 is being left on the table. Due to insufficient time to collate the data. 351, the works report. Can I have somebody move the Chris's report be received, please? Councillor Plum, seconded. Councillor Peoples, those in favour? 7-0. Anything to lead us to before we?
No, the report is tabled, just a couple of other things that will see us through as a priority for the remainder of the year, Mr Mayor. Just the seals, we've got a couple of seals on Friday and next week on the 12th. At the conclusion of that, when we get plant back into town, we have a priority of 3 roads that will receive some much needed maintenance prior to heading off on a break. So our depot staff will shut down at 12 p.m, 12:30 on the 15th. Those three roads will be Bloodwood, Sandalwood and Brayside if we can get to it. Additionally, what we'll also do is anticipate what I expect will be approved Reaper works. Happy to carry the risk. So Reaper being restoration of essential public assets under flood damage works with a submission yet to be approved. Typically what I've seen on those roads previously is that we should win have approved some medium formation grade works. We'll make sure that we'll incorporate those works into that program and we'll set up associated job cost numbers so that we can not delay and not potentially have to redo works. Given the small cost, even if they were not to be approved, we'll carry them as maintenance anyway. So that's the plan for the remainder of the year.
Questions? Before I go to questions, on behalf of council and the community, Chris, I'd like you to express through your staff, through your supervisors to your staff, our gratitude for all of the team's efforts in all respective areas, same to the district managers in Parks and Gardens as well, but your area of coverage here in our essential assets is water and sewerage and also road construction and maintenance, despite there being some areas of concern identified in our recent tours. The ability to deliver on time with very challenging weather conditions that we've experienced since around the 23rd of April, virtually right through to the last week or two, to see those projects being delivered on time, on budget, and within the parameters of the scope is a credit to all of the construction team, from the newest labourer to the most experienced senior work supervisor. And this council continued good position and good standing within its community, but also with TMR and the broader piece in that space is due to their good work more so than anything. In terms of water and sewerage, the fact that we've been able to get through and deliver another year of safe practices to our community with clear areas for improvement, and we're hoping as a result of some of our presentations to see enhanced operational capacity for them in the new year, but they've made do with some very challenging circumstances around ageing equipment and systems failing going into last Christmas. So, yeah.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Creek. Thank you, Sarmat. Thank you, Sarmat. Another annual report delivered. So, further questions for the Director of Works?
Mr. Mayor, there isn't any change or there's no ETA on the Acacia Street wall.
I've left that to.
We're in progress. We're just about to report back on that.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Okay. I will now like to introduce a Mirror Minute number 4, which is the first of them, not the last. I've already had a discussion with Councillor Arthur. It is to do with a road construction project for which he has a close associate as a prospective tenderer, and that close associate is Michael Horman Transport. Councillor Arthur is now declaring a prescribed conflict of interest and is going to deal with that by leaving the room. Thank you. Chris.
Mr Mayor,
Actually, I should, in fairness, give you the introduction because you brought the report ahead at my request. Councillors, I was made aware last week that the tenders had had been called and closed, but had at that point yet to be assessed for the construction works that we've budgeted on Narberthong Road. Given the compression in our schedule after Christmas for completion of works prior to 30 June, I indicated to the CEO and the Director of Works that if possible, I felt it would be advantageous if the tender assessment could be done before today's meeting, because it was the last chance we would have to confirm the tender until the end of January. And in terms of scheduling for whoever the prospective contractors were, it gave us the best chance that if we were to have, as we did this year, a drier start to the year, that work could get in and potentially be completed before a later wet season arrival and or before other works such as the next package of flood damage, the next package of works on Aramac, Mark Coulden, and the next package of work for the Capricorn Highway, all of which could impact on prospective tenderers. So I asked if that report was possible to be presented today, that tender evaluation, for it to be presented, and the Director of Works, along with the tender assessor, has been able to bring that forward. So whilst it is a late agenda item, I have introduced it because I think it would be advantageous from a scheduling perspective for the tenderer to know that rather than wait another 2 months, which in effect it will be before they could gear up. They could be actually commencing work at around the same time that we would even give them notification if that was the case. So sorry to clear it up, Chris, but that's the reason, councillors, why this report's here today. If you want to share that with somebody to go up.
so that's, that report is in the folder, that
I'm not logged in.
right, how do I share that up here?
Can you
Just read it.
Put it on the stick.
Yeah, yes, but
Sure, thanks, sorry about that.
There's a blue one in there, just take it out and use it. In the box behind Councillor Hanson.
pretty one at the back there today, I want to go there one behind.
No, it's there.
Okay.
On those again.
Just
Where it says-
Yeah, the work off. No, not that one.
This one?
But it's, that's one, yeah.
Yes, there is something.
So these works are the works that have gone out for Nullarbor Road under LRCOP funding for pave and seal, which is the extension of seal from the chainage as stated just below, if you can scroll down, thanks. But essentially it's the extension from the end of the seal works on the western edge of the Nullarbor Road from approximately chainage 6 kilometres to just over 2 kilometres of additional seal. Continuing that width of 6 metre seal out to change 8.072. Total length of works being 2.085 kilometres in length. We received 2 conforming, three responses from 2 tenderers, 2 conforming, 1 alternate. That hasn't updated, sorry. Mr. Mayor, I've got some additional information for that. Just incorporated some I made a point also additionally after earlier consultation to include the committed costs of additional $35,000 for design and project management, bringing the total cost of that project to through $416,000. I have to send it through to you, sorry. Did more mistakes.
So that's okay, because this tender won't be for that.
Yeah, no, it's not.
So that's for
just
information.
Just for information. That's all.
We budgeted 400,000 of LRCIP for this. With design and overheads, it's going to come to a value of 416. So, can we get some back? Oh, you stay, Chris. Don't, can you? The other tenders, that is?
There were 2, so two tenderers responded, which one of those was a conforming tender, the other was an alternate, and they're in the order of 1.3 and $1.2 million. And the only other response came from Michael Horman Transport, sum of $380,000, excluding GST. The full breakdown of that tender analysis is also attached on that stick for information report.
Who's quoted 1.2 and 1.3?
A mob from up north, ESC.
We are in open meeting. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. It's transparent.
Yeah,
Just bear in mind
I'm not familiar with it. I'm not a company I've heard of or dealt with before. No.
Would you like to go into closed meeting and have a look at the tender evaluation?
Yes, please.
Councillor Plum, you were saying we do. Councillor Plum moves. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, welcome.
Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour of going into closed session, section 254. Against? Motion is carried. Councillor Peoples.
Yeah, I'm in favour.
So that is a vote of 6-0.
Do you want to change that
That is now resumed.
resolution at all?
No. Yeah, I want to add to it, yes. That's probably not what I wanted to do.
That's back.
So after inclusive, as well as amending the overall project budget to an increased value of $416,000. That's it, full stop. Exclude, if you want to be specific there, councillor, yes, excluding GST. Councillors, do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Peoples, do I have a seconder? Councillor Plum. Debate? Those in favour? 6-0. Councillor may rejoin.
No, councillor's out for 352.
Sorry, 352. Right, this is as presented.
I need to move.
This is as is presented. You're familiar with this intersection, councillors? You know the one we mean?
Thought it was closed, Mr. Mayor.
Well, there was actually, yeah,
Yeah, Chris can talk to it, you can talk to it.
I'll talk to it in a minute.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've got some history from TMR through the preparation of this proposal. TMR had proposed long ago that this particular intersection and Wilga Road, which has since been closed, which is the exact same situation on the northern side of the level crossing, be closed. For whatever reason, at that time, council had decided to close one, not the other. I believe that multiple attempts in terms of signing that road correctly have failed, and that signs that have gone up, giving instruction on the use of that road in particular for exit and turning right heading north across the railway crossing have been removed. The most sensible and safest thing and consistent thing that we could do is close this in line with the closure of the Wilbur Street access.
Councillors, I can also relate to you that the concurrent development application and approvals process for the Barcaldine Renewable Energy Zone, which obviously will join lengths, would drive a draft condition report for that, conditional approval report has been generated for that. The department has said that the closure of that intersection will be required for the project to be approved. On top of which, my personal opinion, as I now enter into the debate around this, is that it's dangerous. It's dangerous. We're condoning, like it's a difficult corner. One good thing it does have is visibility. If you are prepared to look, there is very good visibility, even though it's a split S type configuration. But there are clear alternatives that are not expensive options for users to utilise. And given the department's feeling on this, I wholeheartedly support the recommendation. Comments? Councillor Plum?
Mr Mayor, will the road users that are using it now be advised of this situation?
There's a process that will have to be undertaken, including the installation of appropriate and approved signage by TMR. Approved by, we'll have to do it, but they've got to approve it. They have already provided that style of signage that they want to see installed. Yes, consultation, even just as a matter of courtesy with the major user of that area, will be required, but the broader community who obviously currently use that as well, so through things like our Gazette, public notices, website, traditional media, where we'll be broadly advertising that as soon as the formal processes to do so are undertaken. Further comments? Is there a move? Councillor Gleeson moves, Councillor Plum seconds. Is there debate? Those in favour? 6-0. 361. Now, Councillor Arthur Kendrick.
So, Mr Mayor, can I just ask, has Has anyone spoken to you about the Wilbur Street access over Westgate?
No, no one has.
Just thought how it could be there.
Can I have somebody move that we receive 361? Councillor Gleeson, seconded Councillor Plum. Those in favour? Carried. Damien, anything of note?
Mr Mayor, well, I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to the councillors and staff, and just with what has been achieved over the year. It's been a very busy one, which has been good with a great work that a lot of the staff have been doing. So a couple of things I just want to mention. Our TV technicians have gone through and done their 6 monthly maintenance sites inspections on the Alpha and Jericho TV sites, as well as the Muttaburra site. So that work's been carried out now as well. So that should be good leading into the Christmas break and that over that time period as well.
Questions? No questions? None?
Mr Mayor, the planning, Damien, for the town entrances, have any made any headway on that? Or what, have you got any ideas?
I'm still working with an architect at the moment, just coming up with a design to take back and work with the local, the tourism group that was involved in that on the word go, just to come up with something that's going to be very presentable for the community to get that sort of outlook as well. So, with a nice concept. So.
Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, Mr Mayor, yeah, just like to thank the District Manager Alpha for arranging, well, we haven't had it yet, but arranging that LDMG for the 15th of December. So,
We've got a cast of thousands. The district commander's even coming to observe your meeting.
oh, really? Very good.
Quite entitled. I
I might have to. Get a good night's sleep to help.
362. This is in keeping with getting our land use, like same as we did for Bustinia Reserve the last meeting, Jenny. Damien, anything to further add to this report?
No, Mr Mayor, that's where we're just following down that same process for this expressions of interest for this land, and just to see what tenders are out there for that auction as well.
And the decision on that will return to council?
Correct, through the tender process.
Spend that is the Pine Hill Reserve?
That is, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Questions? Mover? Plum, seconded Councillor Arthur. Debate? Those in favour? Carried, 7-0. Thank you, Damien. Thank you for your kind words. Can somebody please, in her absence, move Paula's report? Councillor Peoples, seconded Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? 7-0. Carried. Nothing to Paula can really answer here anyway, but we can. Maybe the CEO or one of the other district managers can help if you have a question.
Are you doing those Merrill minutes now?
I will, yeah. Two of them down, 1 and 2. Once again, continued good news about the Muttaburrasaurus Glenbenai being acknowledged drop. If you have no questions for that, I'd like to introduce Mirror Minute number 1, which has 2 conflicts of interest declared. It's both Councillors Peoples and Hess. Okay, well, that's the recommendation for the purpose of discussion. I'm ambivalent to the outcome. very aware of the lack of timeliness around this, but I'm also very aware that this meeting is extremely early by historical standards in the month, intentionally so, but it will mean that their decision would be substantially delayed in our support for this. Doesn't have the evaluation report with it because no officers had the chance to do that as a result of the time with which it was received. Does anyone have a comment? Process first. And then second to process, does anybody have a thought as to support or not? You support? Support, Mr Mayor. Councillor Plum? Councillor Roberts?
Mr Mayor, there's no dollar figures on it. It's just a fee waiver and plant hire.
Correct. And I suppose that's because we haven't had a chance to review it to know what that dollar figure would be, because it would have to be up to us to estimate what 6 loads of lime is going to cost. Because it's our plant. I thought it might have said whether there was already a conversation with a staff member but there's no truck, so therefore no staff member in Muttaburra who could do it pro bono, so they'd be requiring full support, I would imagine.
How many litres in a truck load? So the truck would come from Buckley.
Oh, I remember.
Or Aramark, yeah.
It kind of is a process thing, Councillor. I think they probably should have actually ticked in-kind rather than in-kind plant hire rather than fee waiver plant hire. Like fee waiver, helping your district managers would refer to use of our facilities fee. Would that be right? I mean, it's
it's really a waiver of a service fee more than it is a fee, I guess, still, because it's a higher fee.
okay. Yeah, true.
It's wet hire, it's truck and drive.
And then the loan's a separate issue.
Where they're going to get that from, yeah, and how much that'll cost.
Mr.
Councillor,
Mayor,
please. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I would think we'd have a stockpile. Oh, I'm not sure in those areas, but
We do it.
we do it here.
2 of the 3. I'm just not sure about Aramark.
Whether they have a stockpile of that loan.
Do you know, Chris?
No, Mr Mayor, I don't.
There's a massive stockpile of earth around the airport. I just don't know specifically what the consistency of it is to be certain.
I can find out in a minute.
Can you, whilst we're discussing the resolution? Councillor Gleeson?
I was just going to, I'm in favour of it, but there is a but, that they possibly should have looked at further. Six loads, is it 6 loads of the Bogie Drive prime mover truck that's at Aramark, or is it 6 loads of the body truck that's at Muttaburra? I'm thinking that that 1 or 2 of the persons that are at Muttaburra would possibly do it after work one afternoon, but I'm not, and they're just asking approval, but they haven't really stipulated exactly how it's going to happen, which is a shame.
Council has the prerogative to approve the CEO to a certain volume of dollars here that we can then see however that equates out, you know, in-kind support for this, and then how that's made up in purchase of materials, truck time, donation of labour. The request is for this, but we can approve something alternative to that.
In saying that, Mr Mayor, I would be more than happy to approve with if the committee liaise with our CEO.
Just for the full benefit of transparency, when did we get these, Deb? Yesterday?
In the emails on Friday.
Friday. So there's precisely no time to evaluate it.
They were received in the inbox 2 days prior to that, but I was not in the office, so I got them Friday.
Right. First time we get it. Okay. Councillor Arthur, further.
Mr Mayor, they are dated the 28th of the 11th, so they've sat somewhere for a week. I'm against it on my pre-standing predilection to following the policy and having things. I appreciate that they've been maybe done at short notice, but and I don't think, this is probably irrespective, but I don't think this time of year is probably the best time to be trying to establish a garden either.
Well, from a gardener's perspective, probably not. From a volunteer, that might be a bit time, or else time of the year, it's probably the time where they're a bit quieter. So they hook in and do it while they're not. I'd sooner build a garden bed than brand a calf at this time of the year. So if they're you know, pastoralists coming in to help out, that one.
But yeah, Mr. Mayor, based on my previous declining of offers based on my predilection to having policy following, I'm against the motion.
Can we go back and just get a bit more information on this?
The problem is, we can do whatever, but we won't then as a council make a decision on it until.
Make a decision on it via email from the
Not as a council. Really, I'm just looking at this as thinking it's underneath a delegated amount.
Quite possible.
The next one definitely is.
I was going to ask whether that, I'm happy for it to go through as, especially since, I mean, I'd want to have a limit though. I mean, we've got no amount, but if it's, especially if it's under the delegated amount, I've got no problem.
So drop that.
Well, it won't be up for the CEO. I think it's 500 for the district manager.
Yeah, but it's,
Through Mr Mayor, in kind I think is $1,000, and based on, and just ticking over in your head roughly, not knowing, it just says 6 truckloads, is that 6 1-metre truckloads, 5-metre truckloads? So just basing on not knowing what the piece of planners you're using, that would be outside a delegation of the district manager.
What's the
I think
CEO's
that's it.
delegation?
I'm just about to get the policy up, it's on my desk. Good.
Well, our grants policy, delegations, cash is 500, plant hire is 1,000. This is Chief Executive Officer, Deputy CEO and District Managers. In-kind support's 1,000 and the fee waiver is 500 per annum.
Same thing.
So it's outside the city.
It's probably just outside both then.
I think it would be. Based on, like you say, based on not enough information about the quantity, I guess, is that where you start with before you determine what piece of plant you're going to use.
Is that, can we go to make it $990 so that we can get it? Well, if we say $1,000.
We can say what we like. It's the DMs that can't do that. We could make it $199,000 if we
No,
wanted
I'm
to.
just saying so that they, on or below.
But that's up to, I mean, the request is for 6 loads, as both Councillor Gleeson and the district manager have said. What does the 6 loads mean?
Yeah, does it mean
6
just
site
the
tips.
body truck, which is probably what it is.
What, possibly six body loads out of the Munnabara end with their own truck, with their own operators on that end. But it's not stipulated. It could be 6 truck and dogs from Leroy to Darramac.
So obviously they must be thinking about their truck. So what size is the Munnabara truck?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, senior work supervisor is a medical appointment. I've just had a chat to Wayne Campbell, and he said that he's not sure. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer at this stage.
Well, the easy thing to do is to say no.
Mr Mayor, six truckloads, is there a particular quantity there? No.
We don't know what the truck is either.
And that's what I mean.
It could be the Munnabara truck.
Okay, so I'm fairly confident that there would be probably a couple of side tippers worth of material up there. But I can't say that with any confidence.
Do you want to approve the value of works or knock it back until you get more information? We don't know. We can't approve 6 truckloads of loan. We can approve a dollar figure of in-kind support. or you wait until January?
To you, Mr Mayor, because you'd also have to take into account and have a piece of machinery that's got to load that truck. So you've not just got a truck, you've got a backhoe or a loader.
That's right.
Mr Mayor, I think from an operational perspective, in trying to achieve this prior to standing staff down, with the calendar year, it's not likely we'll be able to do it.
Unless it was local.
Unless it was.
If it was a Motorbarrow truck cut, Middle Lane.
Unless it was local, yeah.
And the cost of that would be substantially smaller than hauling it all the way from Aramac.
Absolutely.
Which is why I'm suggesting if we put a dollar figure on it, it might steer them towards using that. I don't know. I'm in your hands. I don't think we can approve that.
So could we say to the value of $1,000, you know, that's the delta.
Yeah, but it still gives services cover. In-kind support of $1,000.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm summarising.
Oh, sorry. Because if it was a lorry truck and it's
Try and sit over here. Yeah.
it should be like, you know, it would be under that.
For the purposes of,
To the value of.
for the purposes of providing loan to the Masonic Lodge. Make sense, Leah? Right. Is there a mover for that? One, seconded Councillor Gleeson. I know there's one against. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against?
I'm not against
No, it's on process.
We are.
the giving of it. It's on principle against the process and the non-adherence to policy. And I understand that we can override policy, but I will not lose any sleep over the donation being made at all.
Those in favour? Against? Carried. 4-1. Councillor Arthur against. They're out for this one too, aren't they? Sonic Lodge. No, it's a men's shed, they can come back through. Yeah, this one is time sensitive. But the same thing.
It's just a freeway.
Isn't it just the tables, chairs and utensils? They can definitely wait.
It's, well,
I think through you, Mr Mayor, it was just that with Paula away,
Away.
they weren't, and that they would have got a response message to say she was away, so they sent it to me.
yeah, it would be $81 because that's what Paul has done.
Yeah.
The previous one.
Let's just do it anyway. I understand the time sensitivity around this. I'll move it. Second up, Gleeson.
Apricot, cherry.
Get a bit long in the day.
Sorry.
Debate. Being none, those in favour?
Again, Mr Mayor,
Same
not
as-
against it in principle, but just on process.
This
And
one
I
should.
understand the short nature and staff being away.
Yeah, the stuff being away is probably not as important as the timeliness for me. It was before Christmas, so a few days earlier would have helped.
Mr Mayor, what do we do?
Pardon?
I have the high fee for the Marlborough Hall for.
Oh, I haven't actually called debate yet, have I?
Yes.
Yeah, up there anyway, next one there. I'll recall the vote. I'm going to recall it to clarify that we got it right, but I can tell the EA is keen to wind up. So those in favour?
Yeah, I'm in favour, but what do they want the hall for?
Use the chairs and tables for Christmas lunch.
Christmas luncheon. Against? 6-1. Read your paperwork. Right. Had it all day.
Fair enough.
Okay. 3-8-1. Somebody please move Jenny's report be received. Councillor Plum, Councillor Peoples, those in favour? Carried. Jenny.
If there's anything that I would point out there, the race club were very grateful for the loan of the generator that morning. It turned out the power's back on by 12 o'clock, but it did assist with keeping their coal rooms running and they didn't have it plugged into the tote, so there was a lot of stuff that was able to be operated, which was very good. So they were very appreciative of that.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you.
Not a problem. And you see in there that the town hall flooring is going to be done in January on the return to work of the external staff. It's just we've got to do a little bit of work into all the doorways. It will take about 3 to 4 weeks. It's fairly quiet at that time of the year. But we've got alternative sites if people need the hall. We've got the Globe. The only other one I wanted to point out, and the seating at Lagoon Creek. In that seating, there were 2 seats purchased by during this process, there was a member of the public that approached me about obtaining seats to put in the cul-de-sac in front of the post office here to put a memorial plaque to her late husband. She's very happy with where the seats are. She chose them, they're in a nice shady spot, and she's very happy with those. So that's all been paid for and cleared. She's now going to organise a plaque to go on there in memory of her late husband. The only other one that I will point out there is the Tree of Knowledge timber inspection. I've found some reports. I actually ended up going back to the architect and he sent me the schedule for that, and it actually doesn't need to be. The issue that I had in the beginning, it had to be inspected every 12 months, then it went out to 5 years. One of the issues they had was there were no lock nuts on it. That had been rectified some years ago. So it is actually not due for an inspection till 24-25 year. But the budget that we had in there was definitely not going to cover the cost for that inspection to be done. If we would need more than double what was budgeted there. So it is, because the last one done in 2020 cost way more than that. So it's the equipment that you've got to use to do it. So your crane highs and everything is very expensive. But when we have a budget review, I'd like to review the use of that money toward cameras at the Globe. We have got pricing for those, and there's 2 prices there. One price by someone who does it locally is very much cheaper than what we got through our vendor panel, so that's a budget decision for reallocation. For hardwiring of cameras to the Globe, and it would capture the front of the Globe as well as the back of the Globe with the incidences that we've had around there. So that's about, and one of the plants that the Rural Lands officers had found out on the Jericho Road, which is around Lochnagar, it was probably close, yeah, Lochnagar, was this jumping koala cactus or something that they've never really seen in this area before, and it's actually quite, the Rural Lands officer provided me a picture of it, it's actually quite a large clump, so they worked with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries guy from Blackwell, and they all went out there and jointly looked at it and poisoned it, so yeah.
That pickup and that plant has jumped into the top of the queue in the whole of regional Queensland for eradication focus from DAF. It's up there with fire ants. It's really, really lethal. They believe that they can get on top of it. That being one of the few known infestations of it, and they are very keen to work proactively with Council and the Central West Pest Management Group to ensure its eradication. It is very, very bad, very lethal to the environment.
No, so how someone picked it up would be unknown, but yeah, but I think you could actually, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, could you see it from the road? It wasn't that far in, I don't think, the RLO was saying, but yeah, so that was a very good pickup. And I did, following our last meeting, there was a breakdown of the cost for that mosquito fogging, and it has been a while since it's been done. That was all part of what you have there. So
very good. Thank
you. Something that we put together there. And the tree planting, well, thank you for everyone that was there today, and it was lovely to see those ladies that were there on the planting day along with Councillor Rogers to be able to attend there this morning. So, thank you. And I would also like to take this opportunity to wish all the councillors and their families and the staff and their families a happy and safe Christmas. And let's hope it's a wet new year, because the grass is drying off and we don't need the storms to create fires. But if you're travelling, travel safe, and I look forward to working with you in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. The feeling is mutual. Thank you. Questions for Jenny? Councillor Plum.
Jenny, has the lights in Village Green? Or how it go?
So the installer has the lights, he's just waiting for some of the solar panel stuff to come, so yeah, hopefully we'll have that in sooner rather than later. And that's the lighting I think we should look at as something going forward toward the rec park, because the sample that the contractor showed me has got it along a walkway. It's total solar, yeah. It's a company, I think it's a Tiger Light or something like that, but it does look very effective on the walkways that I've seen, that they've showed us, yeah. And they actually visited Barcaldine to give that price to the contractor. And as we found out when they were also here, they did look at our rec park. So yeah.
So are they going to come back with a price for them?
No, we haven't gone down that road yet, but a person that was at the rec park meeting, community meeting that day, said that they had been out to the rec park as well when they were in town. So they came out, they were doing a job in Emerald, and they actually drove out here to assess, which I thought was, the local contractors said they're the contractors they like to work with because they actually come and visualise what they're doing, and they can give you a proper quote.
So would they be the people that we could get to give some more light in the park?
Yes, that will be what we look at. So we just thought we'd look at what this lighting, how effective this is, and then go from there.
Thank you.
And that would form part of that piece we discovered in our strategy meeting yesterday around just town lighting generally.
Yep.
Councillors, further questions for the district manager? No? 382, thank you, Councillor Arthur. As we read page 312, the Christmas agenda. It's complex. Jenny? Anything you need to add to your report?
No, Mr. Mayor, we did discuss this, I think, at a previous meeting, and I said I would bring it back when it first came out. The supplier is actually a local buy supplier, so that fulfills our obligation to go out to more formal quotes. And samples of their buildings are in other showgrounds close to us, like Blackall Showground, and they said they are all very happy with what they've got, the products they've got there.
Can you just remind me of the budget for this project in total?
The budget for that project, for that whole project was $250,000.
Just for the toilets to be installed?
That was also for some other works at the showground, that there was an issue with the water leak in the grandstand kitchen. They also found at one stage in a heavy shower there was leaking into the bar area. That was a very simple fix by our carpenter.
Okay, so you believe there's still sufficient scope to improve this?
Yes.
And will there be any additional costs in terms of project management or only your own time?
It's only our carpenter is going to give, it's working on pricing up the concrete slab and what it will cost for them to do.
So all installation is borne in this figure of 132,000?
No, that's just to buy the kit, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
The rest will be at, the council have to put in a septic tank, which they'll join into the plumber's pricing that for the carpenter at the moment.
Right.
The carpenter looked at the options that we came up with modifications to the existing facility in the sheep pavilion, and he said it would cost way more than we've budgeted for because of what you have to do to reinforce cutting through concrete floors. He said would be to do the reinforcement and everything to get that.
Okay, so we're looking at 132,000 ex GST, and then there'll be construction costs internally borne by us.
Which he believes he can do well within the budget. And I will be monitoring that budget.
Right. Yes, Councillor, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Jenny, what's the foreseen future with the existing toilets that's already there in the Coogee Pod? Are they going to be completely removed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, they won't be decommissioned, but through a maintenance program, we'll just do something to ensure some ventilation to make them not as hot and do something with the doors into the female toilets. They're not really, they're not, the female toilets, I've not been into the males, but some say they're not too bad, but the disability access just isn't there. So there'll be just, because people don't want to see those ones closed off, but having the alternative, which will cover the increased facilities for camping, for the cricket nets are going into that vicinity there, there'll be an extra toilet block for any other functions that are on over there.
And 3 showers.
Yes, and showers.
Which actual building is it, Jenny? Is there, did you say here which one it was? Oh, it is that one, yeah.
So they've custom done this for us. Yeah.
Because there was a few other pictures there.
No, that's ours and that's the plan.
Councillor Gleeson.
Mr Mayor, I agree, we've all agreed that the existing block, the existing toilet block, no ventilation, it does clog up, it can't handle big numbers. But I was under the belief that we either improve that one or disregard it. Now I feel as though that we're going to have another new complex there, and then in another 6 months or 12 months' time, we're going to be spending many thousands of dollars putting ventilation and rebuilding the existing one that's already there.
We did have a discussion around this a couple of meetings ago. Jenny, you said then that you think you could do the ventilation for that and build this underneath the 250 allocation for this project.
Here, Mr Mayor, our carpenter believes you can do that.
So you believe that we can do the whole outfit for the 250?
Because through Mr Mayor, there was discussion when we first were looking at this that people didn't want those amenities disabled. They wanted them basically to be able to be utilised during some functions in that vicinity.
Plus this has additional capacity over and on top of that anyway, with the addition of showers for camping of whatever type for whatever event.
Yes, Mr.
Councillor Peoples.
Just listening to Jenny there, and we've got to put in a septic tank, so it probably takes away from what I was thinking, but since we had that last discussion at the last meeting, I've often thought that we're putting it on the wrong side of the Corchi pot, and it should be over the other side where all the trainers and everything are, and they could use those toilets too, but it's not here nor there, but I just think that they could get much more use if they were over on the western side of the Corchi pot instead of out where we've already decided. But
Through you, Mr Mayor, the carpenter went that side because you've got electricity closer and you can join into the camp draft line. I can get the more specifics off the carpenter.
line for which?
They already have, where they did that toilet block over there, because there used to be an old toilet block out in the middle there.
Sewage line.
Yeah, there's a line there.
so it's not septic, it's
I
a
think, no,
sewage.
he said he has to put in a septic. Yeah, I'll get some more clarification off the carpenter. Yeah,
Maybe he's not putting the septic in there though,
he might be joining up to existing.
if that's part of
Yes,
perhaps
because
the
there's septic
upgrade.
at the back of the other building.
So what is the building in the toilets in the Corchi pot, is it on septic?
Yes, Mr Mayor. And they go out to behind from recollection, near the pizza kitchen. So obviously other stuff feeds into that.
We might put together the project.
No, it's not.
It's not septic, it's in our sewage line that clogs up. Doesn't it clog up? Then when we get big capacity people there,
It fills up because the septic system can't handle it.
a septic tank.
Yeah, we don't pump sewage all the way from there back to Surrey Street plant, back like, it's too, there's no sewage wells there. Like the showgrounds there doesn't have, is there any part of the showgrounds, is the swimming pool and the toilets on that side on sewage?
That must be.
No?
I don't know. I think they are. I think it's just those ones.
I think that might be the limit, focus to me.
Yeah, I thought it was septic, I thought that, but I don't know why I thought that. It's just, I thought that the other Corchi pot side, and that's why we had to pump it out. Because the system just can't, the absorption trench just can't handle the volume of water that's pumped into it. Maybe it's not, maybe it is septic.
To you, Mr Mayor, there is a septic tank I'm pretty sure it is a septic tank behind the toilet block on the eastern side, so the one closest to the camp truck, I think. Positive.
Oh,
it's a
right
septic
around
tank,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure that side's septic. I'll get some more clarification, I can bring it back to next meeting.
On where we're going with septic or sewage, with that, whether it does tie in with the existing setup or whether it's a new one.
Yeah.
So further comments, councillor?
Mr Mayor, I'm happy with the building and we do need another building, but I was under the belief that the existing building was going to be made into something else. And also, the positioning of the building and go back to the cricket nets. We really need to have more discussions about users group over in that area.
To what end, sorry, councillor?
So that all users of the areas can have an input of where things are put, where buildings are put for taking up exhibitors areas or camping areas or that sort of thing.
True, but we did have a discussion about that, the cricket nets at the last meeting of the showground users.
That building there.
No, the cricket nets. You said the
I know, I just said about the cricket nets, I know it's all done, but we can't do anything about that. Apparently.
So do you think there's a better spot than where it's been indicated that you'd like to put?
Well, a little bit with councillor Peoples, but then if the other one, I'm a little bit lost, Mr Mayor, to tell you the whole truth, because I thought that the existing toilets weren't going to be there, so.
Do you feel that, sorry, councillor Plum, do you feel that would have a negative impact located where it is?
Sorry.
Do you think that would be a bad location where it is?
Where it's
pitched?
Well,
I don't see it getting much use out there,
It's,
Mr Mayor.
And there's big trees.
Just to clarify, Mr Mayor, the cricket net, wasn't it going on that side?
Yeah.
Which would be behind those new toilets, or was it further
I
afield?
thought it was going there in that corner, is that right? Yeah. So the cricket nets will be between the toilet block and the
I know it's been a while since I seen the map, I was just wondering exactly where it was in comparison to the new toilets.
I will never, I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, but I will never understand why the cricket nets want to be 100 metres away from the cricket oval. I just could never understand that. But that's where they wanted to put them, and the local district manager has done all the homework with the carpenter and feels that that is the place to put the toilet block. Yes, I'll have to agree.
It'd be in a good location for events like Campcraft and Rodeo that camp in that area.
But in saying that, Mr Mayor, if the existing toilets in the Torchy Pot are going to be still utilised, that toilet block there possibly should go back to where the old original toilet block was in the first place. The old original little toilet block that's around halfway between there and the other winter building.
What about power though? I think that was the issue, wasn't it? There's no power left there, it's been decommissioned.
Power's up the ground there, Mr Mayor.
There's no actual outlet, is there?
I'm not sure.
Jenny, the current power's coming from where for that toilet building that's pitched? Did it come from out of the Torchy Pot?
It could come from the Torchy Pot, Mr Mayor, or it could come from where there's that light pole right beside the double gate.
Yeah,
it's in that same vicinity, which is
smack bang right there.
where, that's why the cricket chose that area for their cricket nets, because there's power right there.
It's light and light.
It's light and power.
All right, now Councillor Plum, I interrupted you before, and then Councillor Rogers.
I'm just trying to, would like to know just position of it there, because there are fig trees there, isn't there? So we'll have to look at that as far as putting down a cement block. And the other thing is, with the colour of it, it would be nice if we could blend it in with the colour of the sheep pavilion. If it's going to go beside the sheep pavilion, no, we don't want to have. Sorry.
No. I'm just trying to think of what the colour is of the sheep pavilion.
It's cream and green.
Correct. Yeah, well, that's, there's a colour code in here.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, if you just have it sort of blend in.
Yeah.
To get it. John Chandler's always had us a bit twisted.
Councillor Rogers.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yeah, I agree with Becky, if we can blend it in with the colour-on colours, that'd be good to match up with the rest of the colour scheme, but I think I'm all for it because, yeah, the toilets in there are not really good enough for a big race meeting, let alone like weddings or, you know, like all different events are held there. So I've also seen the toilet blocks made by them in Blackwell Springshore, and they're really good, solid buildings. I'm happy to move that resolution.
Right, so you've moved it. Seconded Councillor Plum. I'll go back though to the councillors over here, Councillor Peck.
I just think we'll get much more use over on the western side of the court, Mr Mayor, and
In what part of that area?
out in front of the stables there somewhere.
On that lawned area?
Yep. All those trainers and strappers and everything that are there every race day they'd make use of it. You probably, people that are in there on the race course on the race day probably walk out to that toilet if the other one was a bit busy. I don't know if they're going to go out side on the eastern side, yeah.
Please. Sorry, your thoughts before we go to the vote?
Well, Mr Mayor, what Councillor Peoples is saying is that lawn area there, that is almost what it is. It's a prohibited area. Nobody's allowed to go there. You can't camp there. Caravans, horses, trucks, nobody can camp on that area at all. It's a lovely green area, but it never gets utilised. So why can't 20 metres or 20 metres of it be taken up as a toilet block?
I just like it.
Yeah, that's where we do utilise that.
Yeah,
And dinners, what do you mean back here, just short?
No, I mean,
Where we had the convention,
Yeah.
convention dinner, it never gets used.
I just reckon that the last thing you'd want is the welcome feature to your racetrack as you walk in the gates to walk in right alongside the toilet. Sorry?
Is it Blackwell?
Doesn't make it any good. There's a lot of things in Blackwell that I don't like.
But you're not far from the toilets in the sheep pavilion.
I just think that in terms of the aesthetic niceness,
Is it Alpha too?
yeah, it's terrible. It's a major flaw. It's a major problem with people entering your facility to do so right alongside an amenities block. It doesn't present well. Odour, in terms of physical aesthetic attraction, I couldn't think of anything worse to put alongside their entrance to the toilet.
Just, Mr Mayor, if I remember, there's a heap of fig trees on that side.
There is.
Great. That creates a problem for sewage septics, and that's something to keep in mind if you're thinking of going that way. You've already got a problem sitting there waiting to make it worse.
I was sort of the understanding that that area is kept green and stopped from people parking all over it to preserve that bit of a feel like you are, like it's a complex within a complex, but that's the entrance to the racecourse. I thought it was quite a nice, myself, I thought it was sort of like a welcoming garden. Jenny, is there a historical reason why? What else do we use that and keep people off that for?
People park, people park there. They had that opera, the country western opera before last, and that was a really nice area for that.
They have the market.
Yeah.
Markets.
Events sometimes in here spill out onto there.
They're separate to this, but there is also ongoing discussion and some history around council talking with the race course around the location of a fence. and the discussion at the time predates my involvement with council. One of the points put forward is that they wanted to preserve this area and bring the fence back. So there's certainly some history and interest in keeping that area as open as possible.
All right, it's been given a lot of discussion.
Dear Mr Mayor, would you like me to find an alternative site and enhancing, without going into lots of detail, enhancing what the Director of Works has just spoken about there? I have been involved with the fencing, the area of fencing with the race club, and what council had put up, and this is going back to previous Director of Works and CEO 2 ago, so we're going back quite some time. They wanted the Racing Association want the fence to come a lot further out, so they would be looking at taking quite a few metres off that front.
Yeah,
Council wanted to do something shorter, but I gave my map to the Director of Work, so he's got to work with. But
So
where they want to come
that's
out
sort
now
of
in
what
line
they-
with that
they proposed,
loading
Mr.
ramp.
That you were ultimately the area.
Sort of from the loading room straight to the fence, I think.
Straight across in front of those stables and off the fence near the Pizza Hut kitchen. So they would they were looking up to take a big chunk out of there as well, so,
Basically a third of it.
but that's not what council had proposed to them, so that's ongoing negotiation.
Councillors, can we approve this with the site to be confirmed at a future meeting? Are we really against buying this?
We're only approving the purchase of it here, we'll come back with a plan on where it's going.
I'm not suggesting that it will be any different to where it's presented, but at least we can do some homework, have an understanding of the septic issue, have a look at the fencing issue, because the fencing issue might fix the argument about where it's got to be.
We'll do a whole project plan.
Fence cuts that area in half, then you're starting to really restrict the amount of space available for it. So let's put the resolution that has been moved by Councillor Rogers and seconded by Councillor Blunt. Those in favour? Oh, sorry. Yes, that's correct. Those in favour? 6-0, thank you. Councillor may return. Just to really what a role councillor plays enough.
Should be easy. Problem that's the train. This one, this one. Yeah, the
Okay, resolution of the council, for council to agree to discount the fees for the construction of the cricket nets by the BCC at the Park Hall and Showground from $13.99 to a minimum of $612. Is there opposition to this? Or questions for the officer? Do I have a mover? Councillor Hanson, second. Councillor Arthur. We've got both wrong, just put their hands up together. I think I've got it right. Debate? Those in favour? 7-0. Right, before we go to questions on notice, I promised to circulate it earlier, I did not, but I have now since done it. The request from, and I'll read the letter, the email to me, as part of the round from Sergeant Brian Smith, Acting Senior Sergeant, Officer in Charge of Long Beach Police, is the Officer in Charge of Alpha Police. As part of the roundtable discussions that we held, domestic violence was a key point raised. This is one of the key areas in which we have unfortunately seen a marked increase in calls for service. Senior Constable Robin Rutherford is trying to get the project off the ground with the assistance of councils throughout Queensland. I was hoping that VRC might be able to pave the way in words by getting on board and sponsoring a number of stickers that would be put on all the phone boxes in and around the BRC area, shop windows, council vehicles, police vehicles, etc. The cost of the stickers is $150 for 400. We would be more than happy to modify the sticker as attached to have the BRC logo included as a supporter to stop DV in our communities. We're hoping that if you get on board that we can then pass on to the other councils throughout the Longreach Patrol Group and hopefully all of the regional councils throughout Queensland to sponsor similar stickers to be displayed in their shires. Regards, Brian Smith. I totally understand that this is not even in any way on a form. However, considering that the ask is for $150, I'm prepared to move a mere minute that we support this initiative through furthering the relationship we have with external state government stakeholders in lowering what is a fast-growing scourge on our communities. So I move that. Seconded, Councillor Plum. Debate. And I'm very open to comment about the process being highly irregular, but I just feel this one's one that I just couldn't wait through until January if we can move on this quicker. Any thoughts? Those in favour? 7-0. Thank you. Can you please notify Brian? Thank you. Okay, questions on notice. Can I have somebody move that we receive the report of the questions on notice? Councillor Hanson, second Councillor Plum. Those in favour? Carried. Right. Does anyone want to ask a question with respect to the responses, or can we now move to the questions on notice for this meeting?
Just one clarification, Mr Mayor. Snaps and salt, there would be a cost to council because we administer it. It's just that we wouldn't know that cost.
We've only got the really basic one. We need to upgrade to the proper one if we want to.
No, it's just more so, is it a useful tool? And if it is, are we promoting it and using it to the best of its capacity and to our benefit?
At this stage, no.
That probably answers my question then. Thank you.
We want to expand to have that plus a proper CRM system in place.
Yeah.
If we don't have that at the moment, it just gives us proper reporting.
It does show us that there are two overwhelming repetitive areas
Yes.
for feedback, and I wouldn't suggest that it'd be unique for regional local governments, but road condition and footpaths are daylight first, second, and the obvious one, water leak. I'm pleased that some people bother to report them because they often don't get reported. So if those two are 1, 2, 3, that probably only would confirm what we would anecdotally receive feedback on as councillors face to face. So, all right. Questions on notice. Councillor Peoples, last one for 2022. Make it a good one. I don't like it at all.
Harry Redford Cattle Drive meeting the other day, I just want to probably bring council up to date on that, is still pressing ahead, waiting to get some clarification of Shane with regards to our CEO with regards to insurance. There's another meeting on the 14th that we hopefully have some sort of idea there if we could please Shane.
Could have it for that.
Right, thank you. They also asked a question which I spoke to the Mayor about, the money we had in trust, is that still available? The Mayor's informed me that that would be, and we'll have a look at that down the track. They asked me to get some clarification on that. And also, we want to do something on the Saturday night mid-drive with regards to some entertainment. Shane, is there someone can help us maybe put an application together to try and chase something out of Tourism Queensland or something like that, please?
Most likely, yeah, I won't have the office, yeah, one that's out there.
Righto, and that's me, thanks Mr Mayor.
Councillor Gleeson.
I think it was good.
Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just a question about the pedestrian level crossing that was installed here in Barcaldine. Is it QR's intent, on the way to the showgrounds, like the pedestrian over the right one, is it QR's intention to do that in Jericho or Alpha, or is that based on proximity to community facilities and population?
I don't hold, can you
I'll go
pass
ask
it?
the question.
Yeah, no, super imperative, which is interesting that one out of the half a dozen level crossings that we have in our towns gets done. And not that I want all of them done, but it would be interesting to understand their logic as to.
Why that one was important. Probably there's a lot of putting,
I can understand it to a certain extent, but then Alpha's a similar sort of situation, but yeah.
Yep, no, good question, but I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know that one was going until after.
No, no.
Start. Councillor Plum?
No, Mr Mayor, I've said enough.
Councillor Plum, I always value your contributions.
No, I have done.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's just been some more inquiries from community, especially up in the Hania area, street area, about when the dump or the smoke from the dump is a continuing problem. And whether we could try and think of some other way to mitigate that. Being like, there's no real ETA on opening of a new dump.
Yeah, I can add to that, it's just got to stop. We've got to do something. We've talked about it. I don't know what the solution is, unless the lights questions on notice, we'll give you all each opportunity to think of what the strategy is, officers over the break, but there needs to be an interim measure implemented before the new one goes live, whether it's restriction of hours, whether it's manning it, whether it's enhanced surveillance, or a combination of all of the above, or something that we haven't thought of. What those people are doing out there is criminal. As the Deputy Mayor said, the feedback's getting stronger, and we can't ignore it any longer. Well, not that we are ignoring it, but
Well, we can't give them an ETA, and it could be months and months and months. It's not just next, it's not just going to be all opened in 3 weeks and it's all great. So, like up until the point that we open the new dump, might have to try and mitigate that it's a health and safety risk.
Yes.
Respiratory.
Councillor.
I do have something.
I've got you.
Sorry, does he want to go?
No, he had his hand up first, but I'm letting you go first.
I would just like to give a vote of thanks to Councillor Hanson for all the work he did for us getting these speedboats here. The community, it was a great event. I reckon people that do things like that, all the time we spent in it, pay on the back. So thanks very much, Bob.
Well done, Councillor Plum, for recognising it, and Councillor Hanson for doing it. Well done. Now, Councillor.
Oh, the other thing I forgot to pass on to council was that I had a phone call from a Roger DeSaley, and they're organising a rotary cattle drive from Julia Creek through to Dalby about the same time as ours, and they wanted to know if they could at some stage probably do an event with us when they're coming through, and I said, look, we're open to suggestions and we'll work with them if we can.
Yeah, there's a package coming from Rapid, from Roger presented to us in Brisbane as well. So. Okay, so Liam Phil, Councillor Rogers, anything else? Councillors, staff, thank you for the year that was, 2022. I still can't believe that we'll be saying 2023 in a few weeks. I have absolutely no idea. Without looking back through my notes and diary, you just can't see what we've actually done for the year. But when you have a look at things, you do realise we have done a hell of a lot. Can I thank each and every one of you for your ongoing support for your communities and your diligence in your role as councillors and staff, and thank you for your leadership. It strikes me every meeting when one of us reads the prayer about the fact that we do lead and serve at the same time, which is a unique circumstance for people to find themselves in. So thank you for that. If you're travelling over Christmas, do so safely, and look forward to working with you over that period of time and once we reconvene in the chamber in 2023.
Mr Mayor, from all of us on this side of the table, can we just thank you for your leadership too? We think that, you know, over the last, well, not just the last 12 months, but the last few years, we think you're doing an outstanding job in your first term. Well, I think you're doing an outstanding job in your first term as our mayor, and from all of us over this side, thanks very much for your leadership and what we've achieved in the past 12 months and over the past couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Meeting closed, 4:15.